Early on in u.lab, the government of Scotland decided to support the use of u.lab across the entire country for individuals and groups across all sectors to use as a platform for activating new action and social innovation. And part of the initiative was that there were some interviews that took place with the individuals and the groups who had taken part, just to better understand their experience and to understand something about its impact. As a qualitative researcher, I partnered with u.lab Scotland to take a look at those interviews, to take a look at that data from a qualitative research perspective, and to see what we could find. And so what was immediately apparent in the interviews was that one of the main impacts of u.lab was to activate new action. And people described prototypes that they were involved in, prototypes that they were starting across healthcare and education, in communities and in government. So one of the most striking things about this data for me was that people were not only stepping into new action, but really they were talking about a shift in their whole relationship to taking action, in their whole understanding of the purpose for action and of its source. So as we continue with our research and speaking to participants in u.lab and in other U processes to continue to understand more about their experience and its impact. So in our speaking to people, very much like you, or maybe some of you, in fact, who are watching, one of the key impacts continues to be stepping into new action. And so, the question that we sit with is, what enables that? What enables people to step into new territory in this way? And that's really become the focus of our research. And what we're finding is this, that the courage and the confidence to step into new action is really, it's coming out of a place or rising from a place and an experience that's quite different from the way that we've traditionally thought about learning and leadership. So it involves this shift in our mindset about action. And it's something that it involves the cultivation of something that we're referring to as action confidence. So action confidence, it might sound like knowing you can do something well and then doing it, but it really isn't that, right? You can think of that more as performance confidence. And that reflects a more traditional understanding of how learning takes place, learning and capacity building. But what we're hearing and what we're seeing is something that's really quite different. And it relates to the moment that we're currently living and currently facing, when the challenge is often, how do I act when the course of action isn't clear, right? Or where I don't know where this action might lead. So what sources confidence to step into new action anyway? And here's what we're learning. So the first key to action confidence is that shift to what you might call a prototyping mindset, right? And that's about the purpose of action. So it's about the learning by doing and stepping into new action to learn something about the area where you're trying to have an impact. And that shift from thinking about action that's more about like performance, right? Which is often, a preoccupation, a real concern, particularly in professional settings. Shifting from that to action that's about gaining an understanding that helps an idea to grow. That shift is really key to people feeling more willing and more courageous to try something new. But there's another layer that lies beneath this, and that speaks to, where the very impulse to step into the new gets sourced. And it's about connecting with a sense of what is mine to do, even if that sense might feel vague, and even if it isn't at all clear where the endpoint will be. So one interviewee from a hub said, I don't know exactly what I'm doing here, but I know I'm going to do something, and it's going to be something important for me. So that felt sense that there's something important for me to do here. It isn't something that, comes from the outside. No one's telling us what action to take. But it isn't something that's completely subjective either. It isn't completely inner and disconnected from what's happening in the wider context. So instead, it's arising up from this intersection of inner and outer. And it's being accessed, or we're able to access it, through the quality of relationship that exists between self and system. So what supports us to connect in this way, to connect with this space of possibility? Well, in ourselves, we know that what's needed is a willingness to be vulnerable, a willingness to stay in the not knowing. But that alone is not enough. It's hard to do this work in isolation. And so another key enabling condition is a generative container or social field. Knowing that you're not alone it's not only reassuring, it's activating. Because in a generative social field, we're able to see and experience ourselves differently, right? We're able to see and touch that possibility that exists for us, and to connect with the knowing of the field, right? To what wants to emerge, and to develop trust in acting from that place. And so a generative field, for example, your coaching circles or hubs, or even the field that we're co-creating here together globally, plays a key role in cultivating action confidence. And that's really, that's of the utmost importance, because the challenges that we're facing right now can sometimes seem so insurmountable that they can have this paralyzing effect on us, right? Blocking action. And in that sort of situation, what can we do to begin to take a step in our new direction? Well, we can pay attention to our relationship with the social field, which shows up as an inner resonance with what's happening around us. And we can let that be both the impetus to act, but also our guidance in terms of direction for action. And then we can take a small step in that direction, knowing that what we'll likely get from that action is more information or feedback about the shape that this new step needs to take, or how it needs to evolve. And so that means that the action doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be fully formed. It just needs to be sourced by an inner sense that there is something here for me to do. And we know that this is how new action is sourced, because people just like yourselves have told us this again and again. This is what they've experienced, and this is how they've been able to move into new directions and create new initiatives and new qualities, quality of being in their lives and work and systems. So as you move into this prototyping stage, you might want to ask yourself, where is it that I feel an inner resonance with what's happening around me? Where do I feel my energy rise? And where do I feel my attention drawn? And what could I do or try out to explore that resonance?